On today's episode of Service That Sells, we're going to be speaking with our restaurant training consultant on ways to make your restaurant comfortable and inviting for your guests. But first, a word from our sponsor.
A leader in staff and management training for the food service industry. Learn more about the art of profitable hospitality at servicethatsells.com. Today's show is sponsored by Instruis Publishing. Instruis Publishing Company is founded on the belief that the world is safer and more secure utilizing the concept of perfection through education.
Hello and welcome to Service That Sells. My name is Sarah Tim.
And I'm Joshua Kiefer. And on today's episode, we are going to be discussing with Katie Wagner, our restaurant training consultant, ways to make your guests feel welcome when they arrive. The work that you do beforehand really pays off. So we're going to talk about that. And I'm excited. I'm a big fan of hers. I think she has, I know she has a lot of experience and a lot of insight that will be helpful for you and your restaurant. So I'm excited to get started.
Yes, she has a wealth of knowledge on this topic. So some of the bullet points that she will be discussing today include having a clean and inviting entrance, also making sure the tables are set properly and set up before your guests arrive, also how to maintain a clean and inviting restroom, which is something that we don't always think about, and also how to maintain a good appearance overall in a restaurant.
Yeah, I think that a couple things come to mind. I love any amount of fresh flowers in a restaurant. Like it can be as small as, you know, just a little sprig of Ostromeria that's placed on the table, or just a little something lets your guests know that your restaurant's gone the extra mile. So whatever the decisions that have been made by your restaurant, by your owners and management to make that restaurant nice, it's very important, I think, that that's upkept. So I enjoy that. And also your point of the restroom. Let's be very honest, it can make or break an experience. If you have to slip away to the powder room.
Yes, that it can. So I think all of these little things are very important just for the overall atmosphere of your restaurant and what you want your guests to experience when they walk through those doors. So how about right now we send it over to Katie in the restaurant training studio. She is our restaurant training consultant and she has much more on these topics.
All right, Katie.
The first moment of truth takes place before guests even walk through the door. The entrance to the restaurant is where guests' first impressions begin. You never get a second chance to make a first impression, so be on the lookout for items like these. Trash in the parking lot or entryway. Burned out light bulbs in the entrance or in your sign. Poorly maintained landscaping such as weeds in flower beds, overgrown bushes, or grass that needs trimming. Water dripping from leaky gutters or snow and ice on the sidewalk. Doors that stick or don't open easily. A promotional sign or poster advertising an event in the past. If you think the outside of your restaurant isn't important, think again. When guests see anything that might indicate that the restaurant is not being well maintained or kept clean, they begin to wonder about how clean the areas are that you don't let them see, like the kitchen. Guest safety is also important in the entryway. Debris, poor lighting, and weather-related problems can be safety hazards that lead to slips and falls. If you see anything that might make guests question the quality of your restaurant or threaten their safety, take care of it or tell your manager right away. You just learned the importance of keeping your entryway clean and inviting. Once inside the restaurant, guests are met with more moments of truth. Guests' perceptions of your foyer and dining room can leave a lasting impression. So it's important to always be on the lookout for issues like these. Dust anywhere in the restaurant is a huge turnoff for guests. There should be no dust on tops of booth seats, bars, and stations. Also check window coverings, windowsills, signs, wall hangings, salad bars, coolers, coffee machines, and drink dispensers. Be on the lookout for fingerprints and smudges on windows and other glass surfaces, such as sneeze guards, glass coolers, and display cases. And also look for smudges, handprints, and grime on walls, furniture, and bar rails. Keep an eye out for problems with light fixtures. Dust and bugs often cling to lights, so keep them clean and make sure all lights are working properly. Don't forget to look down every once in a while. The floor should be spot-free and vacuumed or swept as necessary. Floor mats should be inspected for cleanliness and safety issues. Pay particular attention to floors and mats during inclement weather. Flower arrangements can add beautiful ambiance to the restaurant, as long as they are kept looking beautiful. Guests' appetites and attitudes will go downhill fast if they sit down at a table with dying flowers. Be sure to remove all dead or droopy flowers and change the water if necessary. If your restaurant has a hot or cold visible food display, such as a buffet or salad bar, make sure it is cleaned and stocked. It's easy to have tunnel vision when you first come in to start your shift, but try instead to look at your surroundings from the guest's perspective. Make it a habit to inspect the entryway, waiting areas, and dining room. Every detail about the restaurant affects guests' impressions of their visit, which affects their overall dining experience. Do your part to correct any issues you see or report them to your manager right away. Putting yourself in the guest's shoes will help you recognize important moments of truth that are opportunities to make positive impressions. Once guests have gone through the entryway, foyer, and dining room, they come to where they'll spend most of their time at the restaurant, their table. While minor details in previous moments of truth may be overlooked as guests are on the move, you can be sure that guests will notice anything amiss at the table. Be proactive by checking tables at the beginning of your shift and before each party is seated. Be on the lookout for issues like these. Is the table steady or rocking and rolling? Adjust the legs if you can prior to seating the guests. If that doesn't work, use something discreet to stabilize the table for the time being and report it to your manager for a more permanent fix. Are tables and chairs free of dust, crumbs, and stains? Never assume someone else will be cleaning these areas. If you notice a mess, take care of it. Make sure the table and chairs are clean and dry before guests are seated. Before your shift begins, check for candy and gum that might have been smashed on or under the seats or table. These should be removed with a scraper, not knives or other flatware. Are the menus current, clean, and free of spots? Inspect them before each new party is seated, including the inside pages. Clean and dry them as needed. Do the same for table tents and other point-of-sale materials. Also, make sure that the lunch menus are out at lunch, dinner menus are out at dinner, and everyone at the table is looking at the same menu. Have the tabletop condiments like salt and pepper shakers been wiped clean? Or did the last guest eating ribs, chicken, or french fries use a salt shaker before they used their napkin? Yuck! Clean them up! While you're inspecting those condiments, make sure all your tables have a complete set and that each one is full enough to last through the shift. Is silverware on the table? And is it placed according to your restaurant's policies? Depending on your restaurant's style, you may have place settings already on the table when guests arrive. If your restaurant uses place settings rather than rolling the silverware into a napkin, set each place setting at the table like this. Lay down a clean napkin to the left of the place setting. Then place the fork in the center of the napkin or just to the right of the napkin, tongs facing up. Leave enough room on the setting for the dinner plate. Place the knife and the spoon on the right side at the same distance from the edge of the table as the fork. The knife goes inside with the blade turned toward the center. The spoon goes on the outside. Always handle silverware towards the bottom, and of course, inspect it for cleanliness. Remember, guests spend the majority of their visit sitting at the table. It's up to you to ensure their time there is seamless and enjoyable. If anything about the table is messy or dirty, or if place settings aren't where they should be, guests will likely count that against you when evaluating your service and deciding your tip.
Well, we certainly hope you all enjoyed that information from Katie as she talked about more of those bullet points we mentioned earlier. I think she really hit on some really good topics, especially what it's like for the guests when they first approach the restaurant. What does your restaurant look like from the outside? What's that entrance like?
I think it's important too, as someone that works in a restaurant, you're there day in and day out, that tunnel vision that she mentioned. I think there's it's worth taking a walk outside, coming into the restaurant kind of with fresh eyes, seeing it as your guests see it. And I do really think, for me personally, I love the outside of a restaurant. I love whenever there's detail that's gone into that, whether it's flower boxes or they have a lovely, maybe a seating area outside, or everything about it it catches my eye. I love those home and lifestyle shows that talk about selling homes and buying homes, and they often mention curb appeal because that's a big deal. Like, what catches your eye? Some people will go into your restaurant not even necessarily knowing all about the menu, but they'll go in because they thought it was a cute place or a charming place or it had interest to them. So I definitely think it's certainly worth putting a lot of emphasis on that outside of your restaurant. So.
That's right. You want everything in your restaurant to really play into the guest's perception of what your restaurant is, because it goes without saying that perception is reality.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Another great point she brought up was about the menus.
Oh, I think it's something, again, I have been into a restaurant before where they've handed out the menus and there's been a lunch menu in at dinner. It's not a big deal, but in that moment, it's just enough to kind of throw you off a bit as someone that's dining. And I think that's a lot of her things that she mentioned. I don't think necessarily would, if some of these things are missed, you can certainly recover throughout the course of a dinner service. But why make yourself go through the work of having to recover and catch up if you can do the work beforehand and ensure that these things will go smoothly?
Very
so I
good
loved
point.
it. I know she's got more stuff coming up.
She sure does.
In this next portion.
Yes, next coming up, what we're about to learn is how to keep that restroom appearance clean and inviting, and also how to maintain a good appearance overall while you are at work in the restaurant. So we'll be coming up with that next.
Yeah, you don't want to miss it. Stay tuned, but first, a word from our sponsor.
Hi, I'm Susan Algio, one of the authors of the SURE Food Safety Employee Manual for Food Service and Retail Establishments. The big 8 allergens, which are the 8 most common allergens in the United States, include milk, eggs, fish, crustacean shellfish, soy, wheat, peanuts, and tree nuts. It's important that we protect our customers that have food allergies. Every establishment is different, but you need to make sure that you have designated equipment so that there's no cross-contact between products that contain the food allergens that we're serving to our customers. We must wash our hands and change gloves as we prepare the product for those customers.
Hi, I'm Jim Egbert, the CEO and publisher of Instruis Publishing Company. We publish food training manuals. This includes food defense, food safety training, and food HACCP. I'm happy to report that we partnered with RTO, Ready Training Online, to bring to the industry the best possible material, partnered with the best possible learning management system. By using our material and RTO's training platform, you can be sure that you're providing the best possible training for your employees.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining us again on Service That Sells. In this next portion, we're going to talk to our restaurant training consultant, Katie, about how to maintain a great restroom appearance and also how to maintain a great overall appearance in your restaurant while you're working. So let's head on over to the training studio and we'll talk to Katie.
All right, Katie.
The restroom is another moment of truth when guests will form either a negative or positive impression of the restaurant. Every restaurant will have different policies about which staff members are responsible for cleaning the restrooms and how frequently they should be inspected and stocked. It's everyone's responsibility, though, to keep an eye on this important moment of truth. Here's a simple rule. If it grosses you out, guests will feel the same way. When you notice problems in the restroom, take care of the simple things and report bigger issues to your manager immediately. A frequent problem in the restroom is a messy sink area. Fortunately, this is an issue anyone can fix. Clean up any water, soap, and paper towels you see around the sink area. For both guest satisfaction and general sanitation, make sure toilet paper, soap, and paper towels are stocked in every location of your restroom. Would you be able to enjoy any part of your meal if you had just visited a restroom with a plumbing problem? Probably not. And your guests won't be able to either. Report any plumbing problems to a manager immediately. while we're on the topic of restrooms, it's a fact of nature that you'll be in there yourself once in a while. Just to reiterate what you should already know, always wash your hands after using the restroom. To do it right, use warm running water to wet your hands and arms, then apply soap. Rub your soapy hands together for 20 seconds, being sure to scrub fingertips and between fingers. Wash up to your elbows with warm soapy water. Rinse with clean running water and use a single-use towel or heated air hand dryer to dry. Any time you're in view of a guest is a time to make a good impression. If you're in the restroom when guests are also there, be professional. Don't use your phone, gossip with other staff members, or hog the sink area to put on makeup. Cleaning and taking care of the restroom is last on everyone's list of things that they want to do, but please don't let that stop you from tidying up and reporting issues. As a restaurant team, creating a positive impression with guests is everyone's responsibility, and that includes the appearance and cleanliness of the restrooms. Make it a priority to ensure restrooms are sparkling clean, sanitary, and well-stocked. So far, we've talked about the appearance of the restaurant's entrance, foyer, dining room, tables, and restroom. All these are places where guests will form either a positive or negative impression of the restaurant. The final moment of truth we need to talk about is the appearance of the restaurant's most important asset, you. We want guests to walk through a spotless entryway, beautiful foyer, and sparkling dining room to be met with employees who are just as presentable as the rest of the restaurant. Be sure you understand and follow your restaurant's appearance standards, including the look of your uniform, name tags, visible jewelry, tattoos, and facial hair. If you use cologne or perfume, do so sparingly. Maintaining a consistent look from server to server is often important, so be careful not to go too far when customizing your own style. Here's one server doing it right. Be sure your hair is well groomed and away from your face. Practice good oral hygiene and have fresh breath. And wear a wrinkle-free and clean uniform that is free of spots or stains. Guests will form opinions and make decisions about your food based on your appearance as well as the condition of the restaurant. If your uniform is sloppy or stained and the restaurant is dirty, guests may believe that your food will match. Every moment of truth we've talked about so far is an opportunity to reassure the guests that they made an excellent choice when selecting the restaurant. The moments of truth you learned about in this lesson were the entrance, the dining room, the table, the restroom, and your own appearance. Think of this as a progressive scoreboard where you're constantly earning or losing points as guests progress through their visits from the moment they enter the parking lot to the moment they walk out the door. The higher your overall score at the end of the visit, the more likely the guests will leave a great tip, recommend the restaurant to their friends, and come back for a return visit. Remember, all moments of truth are everyone's responsibility. The team's main goal at the beginning of a visit is to make every guest feel welcome and important. To do that, you'll need to stay focused on the guest's perspective and take personal responsibility for every moment of truth.
This has been a great episode of Service That Sells. I want to thank Katie Wagner for taking time and explaining to us the importance of the inviting entrance for guests at a restaurant. Also, the importance of making sure that the tables are set, clean, and prepared properly for guests. The importance of a restroom being clean, we've talked about that. And then I think something that I have to just talk about a little bit because it's so important is the appearance of each individual person in that restaurant, be it the server, be it serving assistant, the hosts. I think that's, it might be overlooked sometimes in today, but it is not wasted if you take the effort to make sure that you're presentable.
That's right. And my big thing also is you want to be very congenial in a restaurant. So if you don't have a smile on, I think that could also be a big turnoff for guests. So the overall appearance of every worker in that restaurant really does make a difference for your guests' perception of what your restaurant is and what the service is that they're about to receive.
They say a smile is the most important part of your uniform. And let me just say, does she not have a great uniform? Look at that.
Oh, I thank you,
I love it.
Josh.
And how do you think I mean, would you think?
I think you're fairly presentable. I wouldn't mind seeing this ensemble and this smile. You can smile a little more for me.
Okay.
Yeah. That's perfect. Yes. I think that would be a very inviting person to see as I walk into a restaurant.
I can't believe you offered that without me having to fish for that.
Not a problem,
So
Josh.
listen, we have a great episode coming up next.
Yes.
I believe that Katie's going to be with us again, and we're going to hear about all the ins and outs of being a great host.
Right, and appearance also goes into play with that. So this is a great episode to stay tuned for. We're going to talk about how to be a great host, how to be so congenial, your appearance, also phone contact, how to properly conduct yourself in a phone conversation with potential guests, and also how to greet guests and manage that wait time, and how to properly seat your guests when they walk through the door. So again, this was a wonderful episode. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Sarah Tim.
And I'm Joshua Kiefer, and we can't wait to see you on the next episode of Service That Sells.